We'll be mostly talking about the potential for the R word, recession in Europe, not a worldwide depression. We haven't quite gotten to that point in terms of the level of pessimism. So do you think a recession in Europe is possible?
I mean, I do think that when corporate leaders, given that optimistic stance I just described, are thinking as hard as they are, it certainly shows things are heading in a dangerous direction. But I think there's a really important lesson for a lot of industry, not to bring the recession on itself. You know, it's very easy now to act in a short-term way and to bring each individual company's own recession forward, which will add up. I think there are huge long-term opportunities. I think there are many aspects of the economy, many sectors that are extremely robust. The banking system has done its job so far and is really well capitalised, and I think will continue to do its job. So I think there are plenty of reasons for optimism as well, while we are clearly navigating quite a difficult growth environment and inflation environment.
You mentioned the banks. I might start with that because the ECB just released its financial stability report, and there were warnings then there around the housing market again. That's been buried in some of the reports and recent editions that have been released. But there was also the warnings about market volatility, credit risk now for banks. That's starting to increase. What do you make of the challenges for banks? Is it getting harder for them, despite the fact that interest rates are going up, which should be a sweet spot for some of the lenders in Europe at least?
It's certainly getting harder because it does every cycle. And I think that the lessons of the last decade and more, 14 years since the global financial crisis, have been well taken. I think it's a really well-capitalised system. And I think that while some of our memories are quite short, and we look at something like the crypto crash and we sort of forget what might have happened in 2001 or 2002 on the dot-com side, actually the system is far better prepared for it.
Let me ask you about climate change, because we did have some warnings, John Kerry, very stark warnings about emissions that went up in 2021 by 6%, talking about coal usage expanding by 9%, saying it's unacceptable. Also that we cannot really jeopardise what we are trying to achieve for the planet here, despite the fact that concerns now around energy security. We know that's at a national level, it's at a company level as people try and protect their business from the German perspective, just keeping the lights on at this stage and having stable energy supply. What do you say in terms of strategy, because you work with corporations, but I know that you've also very fixated on achieving some climate goals?
Yeah, absolutely. This trilemma between security and affordability and transition has been out there for a long, long time. And as more pressure has appropriately come on the climate end of that, we need to not lose attention on the others. I actually think the current environment, in some strange ways, is helpful. With a higher price of oil, it makes more projects more economic. It does emphasise that security need, which pushes you towards more renewables or more alternative and newer sources. I think what's most important, if you look at what the financial system has done, so many members stepping up as part of the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, that work now beginning to look at what are the transition plans of the companies we're lending to. No one's saying you've got to be there tomorrow. We're talking about 2030, we're talking about 2050, we're talking about technologies which might already exist but need scaling, and which need support from the financial system.
Does it worry you? It feels like there's a lack of ambition for those that have set the long-term targets, just hoping that the marketplace will come up with technology solutions for them, doing the heavy lifting for them effectively. So do you think there is a lack of ambition still by some corporates?
Undoubtedly by some, but I actually have been really gratified, satisfied. You know, I think there's quite a lot of companies stepping forward to say, actually, this bit of technology doesn't yet exist, or it exists, but it's not scalable. But we know that in order to make it so, they need to see demand. So I'm going to step in. Sustainable aviation fuel as an example. We're going to step in and say, we are going to buy this when it's available, which helps drive the ability to finance the production of the product across the board, bringing together the supplier, the person who's going to buy it, and the financing all at once, and to do so very rapidly is what's needed. And I actually see a lot of ambition.